Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit. And always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. Today I'm just doing an impromptu discussion here of something that's really been apparent, especially over the last couple of years, and also the last couple of weeks after the holidays and everything, is the effects of stress on the physiology on all of us. We're trying to live our lives, and I've seen some amazing things that I just wanted to share with some of my patients, some of the breakthroughs they've had, and hopefully it helps you out. I think it's just worthwhile that we really start looking at stress. So many of us just deal with stress on a daily basis. We have family and friends and in-laws and, traffic and, work stuff and bills to pay and, lockdowns and all this stuff we've dealt with for the last 3 years. And I think a lot of us have really been impacted. And I've been amazed by how much of an impact stress will have on sleep and on alcohol use and drug use and tobacco use and all those kind of things that we're really trying to break habits of. Also, even pornography and there's so many addictions that happen as a result of stress. And it turns out a lot of us are just trying to relieve our stress in a different way. And so I've had some people start yoga or meditation or prayer or going back to church, and all of a sudden they start losing weight. And I've also seen dramatically, as many of you know, I follow continuous glucose monitors, and I see dramatic changes in sugar levels based on stress levels. So if someone has a big meeting, or they're in a fight with their spouse, or they're agitated at work one day, their sugars can go crazy, even if they're fasting. So a lot of us have really underplayed the effects of stress. And one of the most amazing studies I was reading that just kind of ties things back to what we're talking about of stress. There's definitely studies on the effects of stress on the gut microbiome and stress on colon health and heartburn and headaches and neck pain and so many things that we're treating all the time with a pill. And as docs, the easiest, cleanest thing to do is say, here's a pill. You have a headache, here's a pill for that. You have heartburn, here's another pill. You can't sleep at night, here's a sleeping pill. Your blood pressure's high, here's a pill to bring your blood pressure down. But we never really look at the root cause, as Ivor Cummins would say. We have to really look and say, why is it high? Why are you not sleeping? And so, sometimes just asking those questions can be really helpful. For a doctor, our greatest tool is our history. So just by talking to a patient, we can find out what's happening in life and wondering, oh, you're getting headaches all of a sudden. Well, has anything changed? All of a sudden you've gained 80 pounds. What's changed? And we can kind of look and step back to that. One of the most amazing stories, Brett Ender, he has a podcast called the Meat Mafia podcast, and he had severe colitis, and he was on a bunch of medications to get his colitis under control. And colitis is inflammation of the colon where you can get bleeding and really can affect your life. And so his started with, and he's talked about this publicly, and this is public knowledge, so I'm not divulging anything. He's not my patient, just a friend, but just hearing his story of being and his episode is actually here on both Low Carb MD and Life's Best Medicine. He was a up and coming baseball player, all of us stressed out, eating more, drinking more with the guys, traveling a lot, out of his element. And all of a sudden he starts getting rectal bleeding. And then all of a sudden he's bleeding, 20 times a day, and he's going to the bathroom and his life is disrupted. He can't go on a date because he's chronically in the bathroom, and people think he's on drugs or something because he can't sit at the table for more than half an hour, 20 minutes. So he realized the effects of stress. He changed his diet. After going on medications, he ended up going carnivore diet, cutting out all processed foods. And lo and behold, his colitis got better. This isn't the story for everyone, but it does show the effect of stress and what we're eating, and how it all kind of ties back together. Because the more we're eating bad food, the more we're stressed, the more we get our cortisol high, the more we get the visceral fat, which is the fat around the organs, which is the dangerous stuff that, is pro-inflammatory, atherosclerotic. um, we kind of miss the boat sometimes when we're stressed and tense and we're trying to eat right, but we're not sleeping, and then we binge. And so I see it all the time. And I find that when people are doing a low carb diet, and we talked about this a while back in Low Carb MD episode number 10, actually, and number 13, about the effects of dietary changes on addiction. Now we have some great people coming out like Chris Palmer with his book Brain Energy, talking about the effects of diet on mental functioning and even the stress level. So I think what I see is a lot of people are very stressed and they don't know how to deal with that stress. So some people might relieve their stress with cigarettes, some with alcohol, some with exercise possibly, but video games, escaping, listening to music. But I think part of it is really finding your peace, because once you find your peace, you don't really need all those other things. For some of us, it's religion. And we say, hey, I feel good when I can fellowship and go to church and hear uplifting music and hear testimonies of people changing their lives. And all that's uplifting. This podcast, I think, for a lot of people is very uplifting, where they can hear, I'm not the only one going through these kind of anxiety and stress and life things. And the problem is, we get into this cycle where we're stressed and tense and worried, and then or upset with our spouse, and we can't communicate those things. And then all of a sudden we're eating terrible food. And then we eat terrible food to make us feel better. Then that causes our anxiety to get worse. And then we can't sleep, and then we can't sleep, and then our anxiety gets worse, and then we're fighting with people more, then we're more stressed. So a lot of us are in those cycles. And I think a big thing is to step back and say, hey, okay, what can I change? Going back to Ben Bickman, those big 5 things. And he says, look, if you want to live a long life, here's what you got to do. Number 1, don't work like an idiot for 18 hours a day. And that's what I was doing at my old office. Now I just love my job and I love what I'm doing. And the interactions I have is a totally different stress level than I had, seeing 32 patients a day, running around, never catching up, and being on a treadmill that's too fast. So I was smart enough, even me, I was smart enough to say, hey, the finances aren't worth it at some point to have the financial security, but never be able to have fun and, take a night off and go for a walk with your wife or something like that, or your partner, right? So that's one. Number 2, get enough sleep. I was working 18-hour days. My sleep was screwed up. And so that all those things raise insulin level, raise cortisol, raise stress hormones, right? Next, eat real food. Cut out the processed food, eat real food. If you want to be on the vegan spectrum, you could probably do it just fine there as long as you're getting enough protein. Some people switch to carnivore. Most of us are more of a balance, saying, hey, I'm going to have avocados and salads and try to eat the healthiest of the oils, like the avocado oil and all that kind of stuff. Exercise regularly, and don't smoke or drink to excess. So those are the big things that we can do to decrease our insulin level and improve our metabolic health. So exercise, if you hate exercising, you may say, let me just do a few steps here and there. Let me just do those first steps and just take that first step. And for me, I actually hate the treadmill for the most part. And now I'm doing more interval training on the treadmill and actually pushing myself, and I'm enjoying it, after doing a little bit of fasting and cutting out alcohol and things like that for a while, just to see how my body functions. And it's amazing, when you're feeling well, you're more likely to exercise. And a lot of us will understand that when you get to be metabolically healthy, instead of being exhausted all the time, you say, hey, I have energy to go do something. Let's go. I don't want to sit around and watch TV anymore. So we change our habits naturally, rather than saying, okay, I have to go to the gym to lose weight and I'm going to exercise for that. A lot of us still do that as part of our motivation, but a lot of it is saying, hey, what do I enjoy doing? If you like playing basketball, pick it up again. Go shoot the basketball. Even if you're just shooting baskets and getting away, that's going to keep you distracted from eating, and it may be a good stress relief for you. I have one patient who lost 22 pounds, I believe. Just he started going for a walk around the neighborhood instead of snacking before dinner and having a glass of wine to calm his nerves. That he just did a slow level walk and met his neighbors and talked to them, and commented on their yards and engaged with people. So that's a huge thing. And for some of us, we have, in my practice, we have small groups where people get together every other week and we just talk about struggles, what's working, what's not working, what are the secrets from the veterans, what are your concerns starting out, what's easier to give up, what's harder. And that seems to really help a lot of people, and also getting together for walks and knowing that there's other like-minded people out there. So, if you're stressed and you enjoy cartoons, whatever, you enjoy video games, find people that you're connected with, because right now more than ever we need that human connection, because all those things help with the oxytocin levels in the brain, with bonding with people, and bonding with people helps also, and it shunts your sex hormones from going over to the cortisol and all the stress hormones over to progesterone and testosterone, the more relaxing hormones. And it's very interesting. I'm going to have Mindy Pels on talking about fasting like a girl. And her book is great. If anyone has, I don't have any commission or anything like this on it, but it's worth looking at the hormone effects, and say, why is it that I crave sugar 5 days before my period starts, and why is it that certain times of the month are harder to fast or do intermittent fasting. And so listen to your body, and try to get those stress hormones under control. For sure, I would say sleep. If you're burning the candle at both ends, step back and say, okay, how do I get my sleep better? One thing that will definitely improve the quality of your sleep is cutting back on alcohol. Great podcast. The Huberman Lab talks about this at length, the effects of alcohol on sleep and stress levels. You'll be surprised, because a lot of us have a drink to calm our nerves, and then we realize, uh-oh, I get more anxious the next day. Then you need more alcohol. Then you get into this alcoholism spectrum, because you're trying to calm your nerves. And sometimes if we just calm our nerves, then we don't need to binge on that food that's, because we're stressed out and had a hard day, or being able to communicate our needs to people. I just got off a call with a patient. That's what kind of instigated this. One of my favorite patients, she's been really having her ups and downs and struggles, a lot of family stresses, a lot going on, being locked down in Canada, not being able to travel, just a lot going on. If deaths in the family, being locked in a snowy cabin with her husband for months at a time, when they're covered in snow. But really, she's made some huge progress of saying, hey, look, I'm realizing, like, I get mad at my husband because he's eating pizza in front of me and I want to eat pizza. Instead of just being mad, she's explained to him, here's why I'm upset, because I really want pizza and you're eating it in front of me. It makes it challenging for me. So I'm going to go for a ride on the bike, and I'll be back in the garage, doing a little bit of exercise to get that stress out. But really being able to communicate how she's feeling, rather than him thinking, oh, why should she get so mad at me? I'm just sitting here eating my pizza. Why is it a big deal? But sometimes we don't realize that we're putting other people when they're really trying not to drink, and we're offering them a drink. It's very frustrating. And also, people who are trying to watch their diet, and people are trying to offer them cookies and donuts, and they say, hey, everyone else is eating, eat one. And it's hard because some people just cannot stop after one, and we have to let them make that decision, because that causes even more stress, and that makes people more likely to binge down the road. So there's so many interactions that happen. And one of the things she did is she wrote down saying, hey, look, I want to be better next year. Here's my goals for next year. I want to look in the mirror and think I'm beautiful. I don't want to have a puffy face. I don't want my stomach to be hanging over my belt. I want my knees to be showing. And so she had a whole list of things that she can visualize now, and she's overcome her binge eating. But just by saying, hey, it's not worth it. I'm not going to allow my goals and my dreams and my wanting to keep up with my husband when we go for hikes. I'm not going to let that overcome what I need. So, just taking an arrogance about it to some degree, and saying, I just don't eat cookies, or I don't eat donuts, and make that your identity more so than saying, I'm going to try my hardest not to eat a donut. I'll just have one bite, or I'll just have one taste. Because if you don't have control over it, as I would tell an alcoholic, if you can't stop after one drink, the most dangerous thing is having the first drink or your first cigarette after not smoking for 10 years. That's when you get into trouble, because we let our guards down, and stress levels come up, and we start having those going back to those bad habits that we don't want to have. And so sometimes after the holidays, some of you may be listening now thinking, gosh, how do I snap back in? I was doing so great before Thanksgiving. Now I'm really struggling. You're not alone. There's so many people out there who just try to do a reset, maybe even do a 24, 36-hour fast just to get back on track, and realize, okay, can I cut back my snacking? Am I snacking because I'm stressed or because I'm bored? Is it really because I'm hungry? And if you are hungry, maybe changing the size of your meals and getting enough protein and healthy fat in your diet, that you're not starving all the time. And realizing that stress in itself is going to cause a spike in the stress hormones, and it can really affect the gut microbiome, like I was telling you with Brett's story, that once you get the stress under control, you can do a lot better. The effects are astronomical. I've done a lot of medical mission trips to Guatemala, and we were just talking about a trip coming up in the near future with the Merlot Foundation, and we were talking about stories of things we've seen. And the amazing thing is several people who were on the medical trip said stress was the biggest factor. So sometimes just putting your hand on someone and saying, hey, we're here for you, or praying with them, or spending a little time with them and just hearing them, because they may not have an outlet. But what we found is huge breakthroughs, not only spiritually, but also because of, helping with the stress level, and maybe giving them some resources if they're struggling financially, that, helping, women in the community who are helping uplift other single women, or that have been abused. Just having a community that understands what you're going through, it's a huge deal. And the effects of stress, we overplay them. We say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, suck it up type thing. But, when you're going through PTSD, we've had several people on talking about PTSD on the podcast, in police and our soldiers. A lot of these people are dying at a young age because of being under chronic stress. Acute stress gets us out of bed and makes us do things, but chronic stress is a killer. We have to escape from that. So, if you're the person who says, I'm just going to work just like I was doing year after year, I said, next year, I'm going to take it easy a little bit. And I never did. I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then I started realizing it's not worth it anymore, guys, because, the physiologic effects, the emotional effects of not sleeping, of, pushing yourself all the time, we become ineffective. So I've had several patients, once they got their diet under control and their drinking under control and their smoking under control, then they were able to make huge strides at work where they weren't stressed all the time, where they could be more focused and they could get more things accomplished in a shorter period of time. So thereby their stress level drops. So sometimes it's just having that goal of saying, okay, and I think for me, I'll tell you just my story, honestly, was I was very frustrated in my old job. I was working tons of hours. I wasn't spending enough time at home. I was making money, but it's like I couldn't spend it, because if I took a day off, I'd be stressed out for a month trying to put out patients in my schedule. I was really trying to force my practice of medicine into the standard model, which doesn't work because it takes time to explain things. Education takes time. I can't just throw, a pill at you and say, okay, you're going through a divorce and you're stressed and you're tense and you have all these problems. Here's a pill for your stress. Here's one for your constipation. Here's one for your heartburn. When we know the underlying cause, we have to deal with the stress level. So sometimes just sitting down and saying, okay, what can we change and what can we not change? And out of those 5 things that Ben Bickman was talking about, I said, okay, look, those first 2 are the big ones. I can't be stressed out all the time. I can't be working 24/7. I can't be, on a treadmill that's too fast and no, I can't keep up. And so I had to reassess and step back and say, okay, what really matters? Do I really need to work this much? Will the patients find another doctor, if they don't want to come with me to my new practice? And it's hard because we have a certain sense of responsibility to other people. But I think one thing that I would tell you is to make boundaries in life. If you're overstressed, have deadlines, tons going on, it's okay to tell someone, look, I can't give that talk, or I can't write that paper you need. I can't help you with moving, or whatever it is, and then when you do have the time, offer that and be generous and kind and not resent it, because a lot of people will take advantage of you when you're nice and you could be running yourself ragged. I see a lot of people retire, then all of a sudden they're busier than they ever were, and their stress level comes back and they're uptight and, having trouble preparing food. But I think sometimes taking that time, if it gives you peace to get a massage, go get a massage. If it gives you peace to go work out, go work out. If you like riding your bike on Saturday morning like I do, then go do that when you can. If it's raining, figure something else out. And just find this balance in life. So many of us are struggling because we don't have the balance. We're stressed, we're tense, we have so many responsibilities that we can't just take a night off and enjoy, or take an hour and sit in the sauna or do those things. So that being said, a lot of people who are stressed go, great, you're telling me stress is going to kill me. When you look at the data with our police and first responders, a lot of them die within 5 years of retirement, a huge proportion, just because of the chronic stress. And by the time your body can't take it anymore, the damage is done, and now you're trying to recuperate. But the chronic elevation of stress hormones and the chronic, lifestyle deficits, because the most ironic thing is whenever we get really stressed, the first thing to go is generally exercise, which is probably the thing that would help us the most. The second thing that goes is downtime of, just vegging or just reading or doing something that you enjoy, because when you're really stressed and busy, you don't have time for those things. So we start making the situation worse. So one of the things is to be able to take a pause and maybe even write down, okay, where do I want to be in a year? What matters? Do I need to work 7 days a week? Can I cut down to 5? What would happen? Can I bring someone else in to help? even if it's financially, it costs you a little bit. How do you make life better for you? Because like I started to tell you, is like when I was working those 18-hour days and stressed and running around, I was annoyed all the time, and I couldn't put my finger on why it was. I just knew it wasn't right, because if someone misscheduled my patient and I had to stay and see him after work, that took time away from my family. Or if a patient's sitting in a busy waiting room, and they get brought back an hour late, guess what? I'm staying an hour later, and everyone else goes home, but I'm working late. Then I have to do my callbacks and my labs and all that. So I was always on this like urgent, like I always had to be very efficient all the time. Now I don't have to be that efficient because I have an hour with my patient, and they're usually, begging me to leave because they're tired of talking to me after an hour. But by then we have a really good sense of what's happening. And that one visit, 1 hour, we can accomplish way more than 30 10-minute visits, because we just don't have time to look at the whole big picture. So many of my patients have such good insight, and they realize what the problem is. They just don't know how to fix it. So that's a huge thing of sitting back, and even if you have a partner or husband, wife, sit back and say, okay, how do we fix this problem? Or if you're in a partnership and you're doing all the work and no one else is working, how do you rectify that? You try to sit down and set some boundaries and try to figure out what works for everyone. And so I think the big take home is this year, I would say, look, if your goal is to be healthier, one of the biggest you can do is work on stress level and look at how do I simplify my life a little bit. Simplify your life too, I guess, would probably make things better. But some people are in a relationship like that where finances are a stress, and you say, okay, how do we sit down and make a budget? How do we, if we're fighting over finances, how do we fix that? If we're fighting over my drinking too much, how do we fix that? And come up with some resolutions. Because one of the worst things from a stress perspective is being out of control and feeling like you can't control anything that's happening, and you're just a victim in life, and you're getting beat down all the time. So some of it's taking that and saying, okay, my boss is a jerk to me. Maybe I need to sit down and talk to them and figure out how we can be human beings and be more productive at work and all that. So what I'm getting at is, stress, there's zero question in my mind. When I have someone who's plateaued, who's really struggling, stress is the number one factor by far, right? If blood pressure's high, stress is probably going to be a factor. Binge eating all the time, stress is going to be a factor, and just knowing yourself and saying, okay, when do I binge eat? When is it that I don't take care of myself? It's when you're stressed the most. And that's what happens. And then we go back to our primitive coping mechanisms. And so there's a book called Never Binge Again that, talks about saying, hey, look, the pig is it's your animal instinct that says, I want that now and I'm going to have it. So he talks about locking up the pig and saying, and I'm going to have him on the podcast hopefully and talk about his approach, but saying, look, I'm not giving into it anymore. You're not going to tell me what to do because I have these certain goals I want to accomplish. I want to climb a mountain, or I want to go for a hike with my grandkids and not be the last one, right? Those kind of things, and saying, look, you're keeping me from what matters. And so once we're on the right path, the stress level drops. When you're totally on the wrong path and you know it, that's when you don't show up to group meetings. That's when you don't end up in church, right? Because you don't want to know that you're on the wrong path. So my patients who show up every week at my group meetings, or every 2 weeks when we have our group meetings, they're the ones who are on track. The sad part is the people who need it the most are the ones who don't show up because they're embarrassed because they've gained a couple pounds, or they're embarrassed because they're not doing everything perfect. But the greatest moments by far is when we have someone who's been struggling and they come in and go, yeah, I've been struggling. Here's what I didn't. The love that they get, and people go, look, I get it. I was there. Don't worry about it. Here we go. And then the people around them will help get them back on track. So the importance of community. If you don't have community, reach out. If you're on your own, I'll tell you that the devastation that we're seeing with the suicide rate among physicians, among first responders, among police, firemen, tons of professionals. It's a disaster. We're losing so many good people. And not only that, they're drinking themselves to death, or they're taking drugs and overdosing because they're so stressed and they're trying to escape. So I would say, look, step back, see what people are doing and say, how do I make my life better? How do I decrease my stress? How do I laugh a little bit more? How do I not take myself so seriously? How do I not fight with people on Twitter? How do I engage in my community, and the happiest people I know are the ones who say, you know what, I'm going to volunteer somewhere. I'm going to do something I love. I have a passion for painting or collecting rocks. I don't care what it is. If you have similar views as people, or political views, and you want to hang out, or church views, that you want to be with like-minded people that will understand you, I think that is so huge, and that will help your stress level. That's your own medicine. And some of the life's best medicine is helping other people, because when you're grateful and appreciative, you do that much better. You can really impact lives, and just being kind to someone one time, or going out and helping a senior, visiting seniors in the nursing home that no one's seeing, or going to the prisons and visiting people and talking to them and let them know they matter and that their lives matter. There's so much that we can do. So I've seen so many great things, and so much positivity in the people dealing with their own depression and anxiety by reaching out to others, and despite not feeling great about themselves or not being happy, that they say, hey, look, let me just help that other person, because they're worse off than me. And all of our scars are there to bring healing to other people too. So sometimes talking about our scars, even though they're not pretty, we can show someone, go, yeah, this is where I was burned over 80% of my body and I'm still going. Or, I have patients who've lost 300 pounds after, being not able to walk or feed themselves, or go to the bathroom by themselves. To see that is a miracle, and it's hope. And that's what this podcast is about, is bringing hope. And, if you're struggling, reach out for help, talk to your neighbor, talk to a friend. Don't struggle on your own, don't suffer alone, because it's just horrible every time we hear about young people dying, taking their lives. It is just devastating. And that's the effect of not having hope, and being stressed and tense and worried about the future, and think things are never going to get better. If we look back, I mean, things were really bad for a while there, and they're a lot better now, as far as not being able to go outside or go to the gym or engage with people or see other people's humans' faces. We've come a long way. And so I think this has built character in us that we've needed. And, I know I appreciate it when I see people and I could smile and engage with them, and help alleviate their stress, and they help alleviate my stress. And we all kind of help each other. We're all in the same kind of situation. We may have disagreements on certain areas, but we can overlook those things. So I think the big thing is, I don't want to ramble on too much, but I've seen the huge impacts of stress. And when people cut their stress, they relax a little bit, they enjoy life, man, I see them get better. So that's what I want for you. This podcast is about helping other people, and helping each other. And so hopefully this week you can work on cutting back the stress, sitting in the sauna, going for a walk, going out in the mountains, or go fishing in the lake, whatever you want to do. Just figure out something where you find your peace. And if you don't know what your peace is immediately, you better start thinking about that, because, that's critical in life. Because you can have all the money in the world and never have peace. I see it all the time. I know multimillionaires who have zero peace. So don't compromise your integrity. Don't try to make the most money of anyone in the world just to let your ego be a little bit bigger. Reach out to people, help them. If you have something they need, help them out. Those are the things that are going to make you happy and productive, and fun to be around. And those kind of people don't tear each other down on social media. Those kind of people are uplifting and want everyone to have what they have, and want other people to achieve and not be jealous of other people's achievement. So that's my spiel from a 53-year-old doc who's, working hard and loving life and loving what he does. So hopefully this helps you. Reach out to other people, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, give yourself a break, laugh at yourself a little bit, and have a great week. And thank you for your continued support. And, our Patreon supporters, thank you for keeping us floating, and have a great year this year, 2023. Hopefully, you accomplish things you've dreamed about, and write down your dreams, write down your goals, and so many times you're going to accomplish those things. So thank you again for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.